This is Waves, a podcast from APTA Michigan. I'm Andy Wicks. Normally my co-host is Dr. Katharine Cline. Today, however, she is my guest, along with her collaborator, Rylee Lane. They recently created a unique tool to address a surprisingly common problem.
Okay, this is a very unique and special episode of the podcast because we're looking inward a little, sort of a meta podcast. So I'm going to introduce my first guest, who has been well known to this podcast since the because it's my co-host, Dr. Katharine Cline. Katharine, how are you?
I am doing great. Trying to enjoy the other side of the seat, I guess, today.
Does it feel a little weird?
Feels a little weird.
And Katharine, we are interviewing you because in addition to all of your many titles and accolades and credentials, now we can put published author. Because why are we talking about that, Katharine?
Yeah. So I was trying to think when we actually started working on this. I want to say 2019, maybe 20. I don't know.
Like 3 years.
Yeah. So I recently published a book called Potty Heroes, an interactive coloring book that has illustrations and words to help empower children to understand their bowel and their bladder better. I am a pediatric pelvic floor physical therapist. So when I started treating kids, it was really important to me that they had good resources, and there wasn't a lot out there. So since I am a terrible artist, I, through a connection through my mom, actually was able to find a wonderful illustrator at Kendall's medical illustration program, Rylee Lane, who has since graduated and finished the program and is amazing. And she's actually on the podcast with us today, too. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit more, Rylee?
Sure. All right. I'm Rylee Lane. I am a medical and scientific illustrator, graduated from Kendall College of Art and Design. I'm currently employed with Michigan State University doing medical illustration for them as well as human anatomy dissecting. But besides that, I'm also medical illustrating for the American Physical Therapy Association with Women's Health. So, been a little busy, but it's great. And I'm here because I got to work with Katharine.
And this is amazing. We're talking about this, and you guys self-published a book. That's pretty rad.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was joking offline that Rylee's the official illustrator of physical therapy. So if anyone listening has any illustration needs, she's the one to contact.
Let me know.
She is. We can officially say that she is the official illustrator of the Waves podcast.
That's true.
Yes.
That's true.
We just need to find something for her to illustrate now.
Yes.
Point is, when we do, we go to Rylee.
Perfect.
Yeah. So Rylee, so on that point, you, in addition to your work with Katharine, you kind of mentioned you've been working with the American Physical Therapy Association.
Yes.
In what capacity have you been working with?
So I work with the Women's Health, and they have just sent me requests of illustrations that they need. Again, a lot of it's with pelvic floor health, pelvic fascia, pelvic muscles, really anything pelvic related. A lot of that's going to be educational material. So lots of images of labels, some with maybe some instructions on how to do certain things. But I've done approximately, as of right now, around 27 illustrations for them so far. Hopefully we'll keep going with that. As of right now, what I'm working on with them is pelvic fascia support. So I have 2 illustrations that I'll be producing for them. I'm so sorry about the cat in the background. So hopefully she's not. Hopefully she's not too much. I can.
It's the worst thing that happens in your room.
Okay, perfect.
What these illustrations for the women's health section? How are they going to be used? Are these going to be educational resources for members or for patients, or what's the role there?
For both. So they did say that they were thinking about using them as like CEUs for their members and educational materials for their patients.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So probably, I'm guessing if anyone's planning on taking pelvic floor level 1, 2A, 2B, capstone, etc. through APTA, you're probably
Yes.
seeing an illustration
Yes.
that Rylee did.
Yes. Hopefully.
So Catherine, I want to ask you a question now. You mentioned a little bit about why you did this project,
Yeah.
because you said you worked a niche in a niche practice area in pediatric pelvic floor therapy, which some of our listeners might even realize is a practice area.
Yeah.
And then recognizing, like, for these kids who need help, that there isn't a good resource. So just kind of tell us about the process of how you got to the idea of an interactive coloring sensor.
Yeah. So I treat men, women, and children who have pelvic floor issues. I've started treating primarily adults, and then through my employer at the time, they were interested in expanding the offerings to children. And, being the good, eager learner that I am, I was like, okay, I'll do that. And to be honest, like, I enjoyed pediatrics in school, but I never really envisioned myself working with kids. And then I took this course and started treating and seeing them more, and was really, motivated by the fact that, like, how can you see, like, an 8-year-old who doesn't want to go to a sleepover with their friends because they're wetting the bed, or like they're embarrassed to be in gym class because they're like smearing in their underwear, or just your heart just breaks for these. And it's really not an uncommon problem. So many kids have, if it's not outright issues with like fecal smearing or incontinence or of like the bowel or the bladder or bedwetting, there's so many kids that struggle with constipation issues. And yeah, I was just feeling like there weren't enough options that were both accurate and kind of expressed the concepts that we're trying to like teach kids in pelvic floor physical therapy, but also weren't shaming as far as the language. That was another thing that's really was important for me. And yeah, so that was like in my mind, I had kind of thought when I was in PT school, I really enjoyed the anatomy coloring book to help me learn anatomy like as an adult. And so I was kind of like, well, kids like to color too. And is there a way that we could make, less complex drawings, less complex language, but that would still be kind of like enjoyable and helpful for them? And also just help them feel like they're not alone in having these issues, because so many kids who have these problems feel that way.
Well, sure. It's so easy to see of how this is such a stigmatized thing.
Yeah.
And like you said, for the examples that you gave, which sleepovers, gym class, just playing, all we could all probably come up with a dozen scenarios of just why this suddenly an issue. I think that speaks to, from a PT perspective specifically, this is something I harp on with my students a lot of what is if we're looking at the ICF model, this is the participation side of that. This is like, why is this? Yes, they have these difficulties with potentially pelvic floor muscle control, whatever it be, but the whole point is, why does it matter? It matters because these kids are having difficulty being normal kids playing.
Yeah.
So I think that's huge that you're looking and that you recognize that it was an issue. You mentioned something about there's a couple points I wanted to kind of do. One of them was putting it in language that kids can understand. Obviously, that's huge. You have to tailor your education to your patients for them to be. If it's not something that can understand or follow, then it's worthless.
Yeah.
So was that challenging, coming up with that language in a way that was accurate, still helpful?
Yeah, I would say that was one of the things that I felt like most unsure of. And I still feel like as I read it, there's probably ways that it could be better, but I feel like as a first stab at trying to, create something that was accessible for like younger elementary, we did a really good job. And I also felt like, at the very least, it's possible that some of the written stuff might be beyond kids, depending on their age, but their parents seeing it and they're engaging with the pictures and like starting to understand some of that. So, your mileage may vary in terms of how, like, what level you're engaging with the material.
Sure.
But that's true of anything. So,
It also gives you fuel for the second edition.
yeah,
Correct.
yeah,
Step it up.
exactly. So, yeah, I'm really proud of Penelope and Peter, particularly their names. So,
The main characters, Penelope and Peter.
yeah,
That was all Katharine. All Katharine.
Rylee, was it so? I've seen examples of the artwork in this, as Katharine has a great job of promoting this as
She
it
has.
needs to be promoted because it's just fantastic resource. The level of drawing, obviously, it's very appropriate for elementary age, the target audience.
Mhm.
But I imagine that your drawings for the women's section are a little bit more detailed.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
how is that kind of jumping back and forth in terms
Yeah.
of? I mean, we
Right.
talked about Katharine targeting her audience. How do you do that? An illustrator.
Yeah, right. No, that's a great question. That was something that, as Katharine said with the book, with writing the language, like trying to find that balance of kid appropriate, but also being medically accurate and in portraying information, one that they could understand. But with anything medical with kids, they're going to have a parent or guardian help guide them through it. So I think we did a good job of making the book digestible for both audiences. But from an illustration standpoint, that's one of the very first things you think about when you're doing a medical illustration is your intended audience.
Mhm.
So my intended audience was kindergarten age, 2 to 6, 8, 9, 10. What do they like to look at? Oh, well, they like, kids like superheroes. Kids like big shapes, colors, easy to recognize things.
Mhm.
When doing more of the anatomical illustrations, it was taking those complex organs, muscles, and then just simplifying them just a little bit.
Mhm.
When I do like women's health, again, I don't think a 5-year-old's going to be into it. You looking at any of those? So it's just taking it, simplifying it down to simpler shapes.
I'm thinking back to a book. So my daughter is 6,
Mhm.
and we have one of the books that we have. It's I think it's Dr. Seuss. But it's like the tour of the human body, Dr.
Yes.
Seuss version. And so I'm calling back to what those illustrations look like. As a medical professional, I'm like, all right, come on. Yes, it's Dr.
Right.
Seuss.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the great thing about working closely with an expert as a medical illustrator is to have somebody really double check and say, is this what you're trying to show? Is this accurate, first of all? And having Katharine there to really be like, yes or no, or we could change this a little bit or maybe fix that really did help guide me in the right direction.
That's great, because that's one thing that
Mhm.
bugged me about the book, and probably, again, it's probably something only a medical professional. That is not how those muscles look. It is not
Right.
completely accurate. And so I guess you have to strike that balance, I suppose, between accuracy and
Mhm.
don't lose the forest for the trees. Yeah, I don't know. We all have to walk that line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is a hard line to walk, and I think I steer towards like trusting kids to understand the correct information, and then
Mhm.
if they don't, we can like dial it down from there. But I usually find, especially my typically developing kids, like they understand way more than like what you might expect if you're explaining it accurately
Mhm.
from the beginning. So
That's super
set the
cool.
bar high.
I mean, yeah, that's part of it is, give your audience a little bit of credit.
Yeah.
And do you get hung up on the fact that, okay, maybe this particular body part is, instead of being over here, it's over here in the drawing. Does that matter for what you're trying to cross? Or,
Yeah.
things like that. That's fantastic. So
Mhm.
talk about Penelope and Peter and tell us their stories.
Yeah. Well, hold on. Let me get my reference out here.
Is it
So-
going to be story time?
Ooh,
don't
story
know.
time.
Maybe.
Bedtime
Is that the
story.
book right there? Is that the book right there?
Yeah, this is the
Hold
book.
on.
This is
Give us
the one that's like labeled as this was our like mock-up copy.
Yes.
Sure.
Before it was actually live out in the world. But yeah, so as
My dog got mine.
Peter's
Oh no.
you
Well,
don't have dog
yeah, no.
issues. This is the life of having a puppy.
Some pets that really want to get involved in what you guys work on.
No, it's so
Yeah.
great.
You know, they're very supportive. But yeah, so basically Penelope, as her name suggests, had some issues with pooping. And part of this was meant to be empowering. So it was important to me to have like a hero that had some difficulties and then kind of overcome that to show
It's the hero's journey. It's the hero's journey.
Exactly.
It's Joseph Campbell stuff right here.
I know. Classic literature here.
Mhm.
So yeah, her background is she had like as a young kid, she had gotten a little bit constipated and had a painful poop. And being a young kid, understandably, she was like, I don't want this to ever happen to me. That really hurt. So
it's no
I
fun.
just want to hold my poops in. And, you know, that created some problems. There's a lot of truth behind the better out than in statement. And so then she started to experience like smearing in her underwear because she had gotten this like huge, massive poop backed up in her rectum. And she was embarrassed about that. And obviously her parents are noticing. They kind of address it with the pediatrician. And she sees a pelvic floor physical therapist. And she starts to have healthy poops again and not smearing anymore. Yay.
Penelope has a wonderful outcome.
Yes. Good job,
Penelope has
Penelope.
a
Good
very
job.
progressive thinking pediatrician.
Yes.
And how about Peter?
And Peter was having some issues with his pee. And he just kind of maybe potty trained earlier than he was like socially, emotionally ready for. Didn't want to, stop playing to use the bathroom. And which is really common thing to experience. And because of that, he was holding his bladder for a really, really long time. And once the bladder gets stretched that much for that significant period of time, eventually we start to experience some leaking when we're not on the toilet. So this was really embarrassing for Peter. And obviously his parents are noticing. They bring it up to their pediatrician. And Peter works really hard adapting his behaviors, but also addressing some of the tension that had started and his pelvic floor from holding so much. And now he's not peeing himself anymore.
Because he also overcame his obstacles.
Yes, he
Help
is
and
a potty.
support
He
family
is a
and
potty
physical-
hero.
Yeah, he is.
And
Yes.
now Penelope and Peter feel so much better about themselves that they want to help other kids learn more about their bowel and their bladders too.
Do they have cool superhero costumes?
They have very cool super
Of course.
costumes thanks to Rylee.
Nice.
Yeah, as you can tell in this image.
Oh, sure. There we go. There we go. All right. Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, in my image you can see it a little bit better.
A little.
They have tapes. They have cool like
slap a screenshot of the cover without dog rips or
Right.
bars.
I think we should include both of those options.
I mean, maybe we.
Along-
Yeah,
Make
that's true.
The
Let's
first
just
of
be
its
real with-
kind.
Make it what happened here. Listen to the episode to find out.
Yeah, seriously.
Let's figure out how paper travels through your bowels.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh.
What type of poop did the dog
Yeah.
have
No.
after consuming?
Was it a Bristol stool chart number 4? Or?
Oh, I was just going to say, Rylee. So when you were going into your medical illustration program, did you ever envision that this is where you would?
No, but I wouldn't want it any other way.
Nice. So I want to talk about that a little bit. So you went to Kendall College of Art and Design here in Grand
Yes.
Rapids.
Yes.
I will admit, I don't know much about KCAD. So they obviously have a medical illustrator program.
Yes.
Tell us, I guess, a little bit about how you got to where you are.
I actually was a medical assistant at like a family practice office. Did that for about 5 years. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go into nursing, radiology. I was feeling out healthcare. Did that for 5 years. And then I realized I was not one for direct patient care. It was not for me. Right. And something that I realized is I miss art. I miss drawing, and I didn't have a lot of time to do that. And so I kind of started researching, how can I combine medicine and art? Well, it turns out medical illustration, somebody out there needs to draw those textbooks, make those animations, a lot of what you learn in biology, chemistry, physics, scientific or medical illustrator. So,
anyone listening to this podcast who is
Yeah.
a healthcare professional
yes.
learned through medical illustration.
Yes. Yep. Pretty much. So I started researching into different schools, found one actually right in my hometown, Grand Rapids, and applied, and then the rest is history.
How long of a program is that?
So it is a bachelor's degree at Kendall College. I only did it for 2 years. I had a lot of classes that counted for my previous degree. So it's a 4-year program at Kendall. Only if anybody is interested in medical illustration, you can get a master's degree. There are only 3 schools in the United States that have that program, and 1 school in Toronto. So it's a lot more competitive. But I got work right out of school, and so that isn't really in my radar right now, but could be in the future.
You don't need that. You have Potty Heroes.
That's exactly right. Not everybody at the University of Toronto has the Potty Hero Award, so.
That's true.
Yes.
Who needs a master's degree when
Exactly.
you can be a potty hero?
So put that on
So
my
for the
resume.
both of you, I want to ask this question. What do you hope to, apart from selling millions and millions of copies of books, what do you want to come out of this project? What do you want the goal to be? How would you say that was a successful project?
If it helps a kid.
Yeah. I agree. The original goal was inspired by my patients, but honestly, my real hope is that kids use it and never have to become patients.
Right.
So, yeah. And I think just to build some awareness surrounding these problems too, and that there's ways to address them. Yeah.
Well, I think one thing this book does a really great job of, that you both have already talked about, is just normalizing it and making it okay.
Yep.
And making it, it's something to be ashamed of, and it's not something to hide. It's something, chances are, many people that you know have dealt with this or
Yeah.
are dealing with it, and
Yeah.
there's help out there.
Yeah, a lot more common than people think.
Yes. And I think understandably so, as from a parenting perspective, it can be quite frustrating, if your child's having these type of issues. And I think one of the things that I was really hoping to convey in the book was, it's the kid's fault that this is happening, and B, it's very, there are ways to address it, and often it can improve significantly quickly, because these issues are definitely a significant cause of stress within a family unit too.
Oh, for sure.
So if Potty Heroes can help alleviate any of that, I think that's a really positive outcome as well.
As a parent who has gone through potty training and had both one kid who kind of just figured it out within an hour and other kid that took a long time, yeah, I can speak to the stress and the frustration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought my wife and I had, a solid plan when we went into that. We call her, this is the weekend, we are potty trained. And
Yeah.
I thought overall, I think we did a good job, and it was still really stressful. So I can only imagine when it doesn't go as you plan, and life also continues to happen, and all sorts of other problems that maybe you didn't anticipate. And it's only natural to be frustrated at the kid. I mean, and I think deep down we understand, like, the kid is trying and still learning and things like that, but it's we are humans, and it is, tempers can flare and aggressions can come up, only causes all these other more problems. So I think your book has potential. It's going to help in more ways than I think you even realize.
I hope so.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like we did a good job with, it's not just figuring out how to sit on the potty. I mean, it's foods, it's, the bacteria in your stomach, it's the overview of anatomy, it's how your digestive system works. That I think even with, people who have no sort of medical background, parents who don't quite understand some of the language, maybe when you're going to the doctor, well, whatever, what all that means. So I think it'll be helpful with that too.
You may have heard, Rylee, in your discussions with Katharine, the term social determinants of healthcare. And one of them is,
I don't know if we got that deep.
Well, we'll talk about it right now.
I remember forms at the doctor's office that dealt with that.
There you go. Yeah. Which essentially is a way of looking at all these factors in a person's life outside of healthcare that can positively or negatively affect their ability to access healthcare. And a big one is healthcare literacy, meaning just because you can make it to the doctor, just because you have insurance, do you actually understand what's being said to you?
Right.
And because of a myriad number of reasons, a lot of times patients or their families will just smile and nod and, okay, got it, and walk out. I have no idea. What was just in the handout that they gave me doesn't answer any of my questions.
Right.
And so recognizing all that to say, the education that you provide in terms of diet, that's like going home and eating half a block of milk, probably for your colon, and maybe that's
checks
going to help your poop. Things like that that some people honestly might be like, oh, I should have more vegetables. Things will it's simple stuff.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I know that because I treat a lot of adults too, and I know that these concepts are not well understood in the adult population. So I guess that's kind of part of it too. Is like, get the exposure going early.
Exactly. An ounce of prevention. Well, what's next for both of you and your illustrious publishing career? When's the next book coming out, Katharine?
When's the next book coming out?
When's the sequel? When's Potty Heroes 2 coming out?
I do have an idea for a sequel. I haven't discussed it with Rylee yet, though.
I love so this going to be like scoop.
I know. You heard it here, her first book. I imagine this is going to be like, a potty version of like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is the start of the franchise.
So someone in my life did ask how much it would cost for the rights to Potty Heroes if and when it becomes, Netflix series or something like that.
Kids TV is a huge market. And again, as a parent of 3 kids, I can vouch for what you watch and what's good and what's garbage. So maybe a Potty Hero series is what's in the works here.
Who knows?
I only want a small percentage for that idea. Just a small percentage.
You could be the casting director.
Do you want to know my idea for the second installment?
Sure. If you want to share it here on the podcast, if this is the exclusive leak here.
This is the exclusive. So I think the new hero's name potentially is going to be Nocturia, because that sounds cool.
Yeah. Ooh.
I'm thinking like sleek, like black, blue, purple outfit.
I picture like a PJ Masks kind of thing, maybe.
I don't know that reference.
I don't know what that is.
Oh my gosh. You guys and your not being kids.
And that's all you.
Anyone who's listening who has kids be like, oh yeah, totally.
I see what you're. Oh, I like it. Never seen this before in my life, but
I have not either.
It's not my favorite. No, okay, so Nocturia. So is Nocturia a good character or a bad character?
So Nocturia is, I think, a good well, I still like workshopping the story in my mind.
Sure.
But Nocturia, I think, is a good character. So Nocturia means, peeing in the middle of the night, right? So, which I wanted to make the story more about bedwetting. So I think I'm going to have a section where her like brother or something is trying to tease her and uses the wrong name, and then she becomes Nocturia or something like that.
Maybe Nocturia is a bad character at first, but becomes a good character.
Turns into a good guy.
Ah.
And maybe she's bad because maybe she's ashamed of her thing. I like the idea. I like the Nocturia. I think there's potential there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I was thinking we didn't really address, bedwetting, nighttime leaking, in the first Potty Heroes. So
Potty Heroes Volume 2.
You can't put it all in the first book.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like, see, this is a good idea. We can bring Penelope and Peter back. Maybe first Nocturia is like, the villain, and then they meet each other, like
classmate, and
classmate, and maybe she's like giving them a hard time, like teasing them, and then they get to know her and they find out that she's having some problems too, and they help her
mean.
and they become friends.
Yeah.
She's mean because she's having problems.
Yeah.
Oh, see,
all right, I like this.
Potty Heroes too.
Perfect.
I love it. And
copyright.
The third one will be like
no one out there steal this.
Already
the third one will be they go to some alternate dimension, and then the fourth one will be like we start the spin-offs where like Peter gets his own movie and then Penelope gets her own movie. We got at least like 6 installments.
Exactly.
We have room to grow. Absolutely.
Then we could write like there's a school where they all go to, kind of like Harry Potter, and
then,
a magical school.
Potty Heights High.
Maybe we'll put a pin in that. We'll workshop that one. We'll see.
I love it.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess because I just made myself one of the consultants on this project.
I like it. You're providing, good storyboarding here.
Just give me a little credit in there somewhere else.
Yeah.
Fantastic. The book is called Potty Heroes, an interactive coloring book. Is that correct? Did I get that right?
Yep.
It is available on Amazon for purchase. We will have a link in the show notes. Rylee, is there a way that you want to publicize yourself? Do you have a website? Stuff where we can share your work?
Yeah, it is RyleeLNstudios.com. I will share that link with you.
Yeah, we'll have that as well.
Yeah, there's contact form on there via email or phone number too. So if anybody
good luck reaching
interested,
her though, because she is, as we said, the official illustrator of the Waves podcast, and we're working on the official illustrator of BCA.
Yes. Squeeze in now. Yes.
Very cool. Well, again, thank you for sharing about this project, because I think it's just it's so unique, so cool, and I like, I feel like I'm rubbing elbows with celebrities, knowing Katharine and meeting you, Rylee. So cool.
Andy.
I'm going to try to be famous any chance I can. So, well, thank you again, and we look forward to the second installment of the Potty Hero series, Nocturia, and we'll come up with a subtitle later. But
right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Andy.
Waves is a production of APTA Michigan and is usually co-hosted by me and Dr. Katharine Cline. However, she was one of our guests today, along with Rylee Lane. Links to their book, Potty Heroes, an interactive coloring book, can be found in the show notes, along with links to their websites. You can find Waves online at www.aptami.org/podcasts or on social media at aptamiwaves. As always, thank you for listening, and may your documentation always be done on time.